Native Americans a long time ago, but that started me down the mystical path. I was into the Bible as a young child, and did a lot of Sunday school and understood that, and was interested in the Church of the Gods, and was a believe the ancient alien thing is probably the closest thing to factual history. And so I was just curious in watching YouTube videos and come across a video by Ambio. It's called The Living Stones of Sacsayhuaman. And I was just aghast at all the precision, just the whole thing is incredible. And then there at the end, they show a stone that has an obvious petroglyph on it. And they say, you know, there's nothing really known about it or anything. Just really were at a loss to explain anything on it. And I believed in an ancient technology, and we should see the tool marks on this rock. And so I tried to do as much examination of that image as I could, tracing it over with just hundreds of times of pieces of wax paper. You can see that.
Oh wow, yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah.
They were real rudimentary to begin with. And then I tried to get some color involved and try to figure out what was happening on that. And then, because I could see the eye on that obvious reptilian. Anyway, I spent many hours trying to trace out the tool marks. That was what I was about. And on the side, I was listening to like Harry Hubbard and some of these other YouTubers who have really fantastic information. I've shared some of their videos on Twitter, and there are sections in there where you could pause and read in those ancient books some information about Cusco and what they found when they originally arrived. And I really was just intrigued with the whole thing and digging deeper into the history and prehistory of Inca. And that led me down this path of some really esoteric knowledge from wisdom keepers. I couldn't even tell you how to get back to where I found a lot of the stories and the things that I've learned.
Hey, hi guys. This is Sherman Osborn. He's a big research guy, or he looks into all the ancient or stuff a lot. And I found him on Twitter, and he really is brought my attention to this one particular stone that he's always seeing different shapes in and stuff. So that's like what we're talking about here. What do you call this stone?
Well, I referred to it as the Codex Viracocha, because what I found is artwork that's very reminiscent of the Mesoamerican style in the codexes that we know of that survived the book burnings of the early 1500s.
Okay, of the Mayan, or you mean like of Incan?
It's obviously was found at Sacsayhuaman, so I'm going to say that it is well pre-Incan, but it reminds me of a style that's very much Mesoamerican.
Yeah.
Toltec, actually even earlier, that Olmec. And what I found too was that there's evidence that's not really getting mainstream discussion, the evidence at TIWANAKU, where it looks like man-made conduits were laid over 12,000 years ago because of the stalactite growth inside them, put with little clamps, hallmark of the keystone cuts with metal clamps in them are in these 12,000-year-old stalactite containing conduits. There's video. Costa goes in these tunnels and videos these in situ, and you can see them. It's found on YouTube. It's just real esoteric. Not a lot of people have watched those videos. Akakor, which is a mythical fake place, according to academics. Karl Brugger, a Sherman in Bolivia, wrote this book about his experience, or I'm not real sure. I haven't read the book, but I do know just the cursory elements of it. But anyway, this one group, the Akakor Geophysical Survey, is the people that did the tunnel exploring TIWANAKU. And now I believe diving TIWANAKU, Titicaca, and finding incredible things. These conduits have the hallmarks that we find in Egypt and other places on the planet, and it is tied to nub phenomena. These other things, but we very rarely see much art, especially fine art, associated with it. Something like the Hittites, where they have some sculpture, or the Cambodians, who are world famous for their beautiful stuff. India, all around the world. But we don't see much that's associated with it in South America. The Wakas are very strange looking to us, but we don't find a lot of petroglyphs of fine quality. And stone, which could possibly have been found behind polygonal walls used as fill by whoever picked the polygonal wall, is very rare. There's been nothing found, but they quit looking. But it's got some extraordinarily small tools. I mean, there are millions that make up this petroglyph, and they cannot have been done by pecking with anything.
So let me ask you this. Do you know where at Saxy Woman this stone is located?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So where, if I had to map it out, is it like by where the main structures are? Is it by that big natural looking rock, or behind that, or where?
Okay. If you were standing in the center circle at the Greek Marca, you know what that is, the Torion, that's the central feature at the top of the hill, and you were to look back at the Coricancha, it's right below you, right down the hill on that bottom tier, right in the corner of this one little, the lowest tier before the large opening off to the east.
Okay.
It's southwest of the center of the Torion towards the Coricancha. And I think that this stone may depict the scene from its position of the Coricancha. Right on that one end is the large rounded wall that has the hidden tunnel network in it. And this stone appears to show a rounded end on the right side and a squared off end on the left end, with what looks to me an Atlantean giant. He's quite large, the largest human figure on the rock that I can tell so far, because there's so much lichen growth on it. In the original picture, which was 5 years old, is the earliest picture that I could find. I can't find any records of this thing being found. And if it wasn't for this documentary by Ombio with Igor, who went and talked to Louis, who says he found it, but where's the documents? They should have. They should have done something, because this is easily recognizable with a little bit of
and I've been to Saxy Woman. Like, I've been there to the Saxy Woman, and I don't remember seeing anything even like it. Like, it even looks like it's a different kind of stone than what's in the actual, big monuments and stuff. So that's what's really fascinating about it.
They say it's andesite, and it is in an off limits area. And he had extraordinary permissions, but several years after my first encounter with Yadek, started telling people about it and everything, I run into a fellow on a Google Plus platform, and he happened to be in Cusco and had just a little bit of time to run up and get permissions, and he went and he took video and pictures for me that I share online on my Twitter feed. They are 10 years after this thing's been out of the dirt, and it has already changed its color to a really gray looking color, but the lines in it have become more mossy and dark, and you can actually tell a few more things about the stone because of that. But it really needs to be cleaned and some attention given to it and documented. The thing is, it's so fine that it's going to take a very good scanning with micro topographical details so that we can really make out what is actually on it, because it is very, very small. If you look at the just the image of Quetzalcoatl, the plume serpent, Amaru, what have you, his eye is such that, let's see here, let me pull this one out, where I blew these pictures up into a life-size poster so that I could kind of get a feel for the size of the.
Do you know the actual size?
No, I do not know the sizes, the dimensions. I just had to take a guess based on a flower and blades of grass. And I come up with about 40 plus inches long, probably 20 plus inches tall, and has a unique shoulder cut on the top and bottom of the image that is reflected on the back. It has a strange look to one end. I'm not sure how this thing fit into the puzzle, whether it was on the wall horizontally as it's placed on the ground there, which is what I believe, that it's sitting properly oriented at the moment. But it could have laid on the ground and with the face up, and they just pulled it and put it away and then brought it out, put it back down when they needed it, because it is such a pristine image. I hear a lot about, oh, it looks this badly eroded. No, this thing is perfect. It took me several months of looking at it before I wrote, oh my God, everything is here. There's nothing missing. It's not a bad, it's so good. Whoever did this was an amazing artist. The kind of artist that were legendary and that wars broke out over.
I guess you're saying that it's like that because it's almost like an MC Escher, like all the puzzle pieces like fit together to form the next thing that form the next thing. Like it's like a giant maze of a puzzle.
A mosaic of a mural that it could have been on the wall among many others, or just a line. But I do believe there are many more of these. I don't think that they just made the one,
Right.
and that's because of some of the research that I've done or heard Harry Hubbard, his books. They speak of the calendar stones, more than one, that were positioned around the city of Cusco, and that they had the ceremonies for each month, and maybe many ceremonies per month, and feast, and everything situated so that whole Cusco was a calendar that was for their festivals and planting and all the different things that the Inca were into whenever the Spanish come.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that the original purpose of the rock? I think maybe it was, because there's some image on there that looks like an event. I can't tell if it's history. I tend to believe that it's something very important, and that it's been carried on for generation after generation after generation. And if it's tied to this 12,000-year-old megalithic culture, and it shows an Atlantean giant with ginormous reptiles, I'm thinking, well, the Ica stones show ginormous reptiles and people, and some of those are actually real, that they are being found today still, and surreptitiously put back in to the digs and covered over and never mentioned. I've seen videos that I can't say that it's authentic, but it sure looks like that's exactly what's going on. Archaeologists pulling them out and putting them back.
I did a Peru trip in 2016, and I wasn't into any of this stuff at that time. Like, I was a little bit, but not to the level I am now. And when I went to Sacsayhuaman, it was on an off day. We weren't even planned to go there. And that is like what kind of awakened my whole entire interest in ancient history, like to the level that I have now, because I was, first of all, and this sounds super crazy, but there's like an electrical humming noise, for me at least, the entire time I was at that site. There's only two places on the world that I've had that. Actually, Stonehenge. Like, when I was 23 years old, I was just like, why are the rocks buzzing? Like, why are the rocks making a noise? And the lady girl I was with was like, they're not. And I was like, yeah, they are. It sounds like a running refrigerator. And
Wow.
it was even 10 times louder at Sacsayhuaman. The entire place like has this like this high-pitched buzz the entire time you're walking around. And you see how huge some of the stones are, and like get up and like touch your hand to it, you're going like, whoa, what is this? Like, really, what is this? I mean, all these weird rounded stones placed together in a geometric thing of perfectness, it's insane. And there's like designs within all the walls. You can see like a puma fist, you can see a serpent, like there's, and it's colossal. The whole thing is just
Can
like
you imagine?
even individual
That's
stone.
real older structure. That's kind of what it looks like. Is there's an older structure behind that, or at least older elements have been used
Mm-hmm.
in the construction of that.
Well, it's really curious because the Spanish conquistadors and stuff, when they basically used all the Incas, like the base of all the buildings in Cusco are, from the ancient Incas. They just like put their churches and their offices and their buildings and their homes they just built on top of what was already existing there, but they never touched Sacsayhuaman, which is weird because it would be like the prime. It's like it's elevated, it's on top of the city, like looking down. It would be a prime location to have, you know, your main temple or your main church or your main like headquarters or something. It would be prime location, but they'd never touched it. I thought that's really interesting.
It's very. It's rumored to be somewhat hollow, or at least have hollows in it. That you know, some of those leading to the Viracocha and points beyond.
I have heard of that. I mean, you don't get to see anything like that when you're there. Like I heard that it does have a tunnel system, but I never got to. I don't know anybody who has seen that. I've just heard of that.
Rooms there, they've excavated just that portion to the, I'm going to say south of where this stone is. There's a series of walls and stuff in there that are look like they have doors going into rooms, but now there's a lot of that going on in Peru. False doors, niches, you know, but it's hard to get to those places and actually take pictures because they are off limits, and you have to either bribe somebody or know somebody or something. I sent another researcher, an indigenous, Rafa Mercado, Raphael. He has his own YouTube channel. He went and did a short segment that included this rock and the writing on the bedrock, and it's basically just going over the living stones of sexy woman information. He didn't really do a very good job of researching, you know. I'm hoping he'll get back to that. I need to send people to him to tell him to get back up there and do some diligent research on this rock.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to go with a LiDAR scanner and permission to clean it, to take a picture of it. They should have this thing in a museum.
That's what I was gonna say. Like I just saw that you know, they have the newer iPhones or whatever have that ability. You can get certain apps where you can like LiDAR scan things like right up close. And I was thinking that would be a perfect, this would be a perfect candidate for something that needs to be scanned.
I think so. I think it is the most precious piece at Sacsayhuamana. There's more information on it than anything they've ever recovered in all of Peru that they didn't melt down.
Right.
The gold sheets and all that stuff, you know, it's never going to be known what was on it, and it may very well be exactly the kind of things that's on this stone. Now I'm sure it must have been. They freaked out whenever they saw all this, and they burned all the books, and they tried to get rid of as much of this stuff as they could. And the Inca had given up the use of talking leaves or petroglyphs and drawings as words, and so this must have been from before them. And by everything I can figure out, it's got to be extremely before them. It's very, very much the representation of Viracocha that's at TIWANAKU. And it's going to be 12,000 years old or older, because the stalactites, minimum, it's that old.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that's a yeah, it's a crazy connection with all that. So I know you think other people have the nub thing better figured out than you, but I noticed that you follow the nub phenomenon a lot. So if you had to paraphrase what that is to people, what would you say it is right now?
Well, it's a globally connected hallmark that's basically a signature of the megalithic builders at that time.
Yeah.
They are on some buildings that are using blocks where these hallmarks seem to be repurposed there at Ollantaytambo, keystone cuts that are out of situation.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have probably used one on a it's a vertical surface. They would lay them down horizontally like they do. As you see them in most places like Pumapunku, TIWANAKU. That's how they're used there.
So like I know that there's a language to it.
Runasimi is the language that is of that area, but Runasimi people don't seem to be sharing any information about what nubs might be. They probably don't have any. That's probably lost knowledge, but it's tied to the hallmarks of the global builder civilization that even left their mark in the Ahus of Easter Island that have moai sitting on. These things are all around the world. They use tiny blocks, filler stones. There's the beveled edges of the blocks. There's a number of hallmarks that Andrew and Phil and some of the other boys are a lot better at cataloging. They put a lot of effort into it, and they really need recognition and some support.
Wait, so what's their what are their how do people find them?
That's ancient history criticisms and the ancient alternative view YouTube channels. I have a lot of subscribed to channels like them, Ziggy Dan, and there's innumerable researchers on YouTube and Twitter who are into the things that we're talking about.
Yeah, that's where I found that. I'm actually talking to Ziggy Dan in a couple of days, so that'll be interesting.
Yes, a lot of very knowledgeable people out there. If you can find them, get them to open up to what they're doing. Stone nub language. There's so many. There are so many very good researchers with some very interesting thoughts. One of these days, one of us is going to be right about some things. Some of us are wrong. But I know that with this rock, what I like to talk about is it's indisputable. I got hard evidence of a very, very advanced tool.
So can you send me some more detailed pictures so that I can add them on here for people?
The best place to get the pictures is from the original arcanafactor.org.
Arcanafactor.org. Okay.
Yes, I can share a picture from them here. Pull one up. They have great pictures. These are 4K pictures that are just way good, and they show that the sun passing over the image, it has a lot to do with what you're seeing, because the shadows are a big deal.
Yeah.
It may make the image move, so to speak. 1 minute it may look like this is happening, the next minute something else may be highlighted, like the decapitation event that I think is on it. I've zoomed in a little bit here. Give it a shot. And I'll have to get around over here so I can see the camera.
Okay.
Now, this is going to be kind of difficult to do it this way, but we'll try it. All right. The Viracocha character right here. Can you see him?
Well, I don't know. Is that the wall line?
I'm sorry?
Is that the long skinny line? Like there's one main like that goes through the entire there's one main like curvature line that goes through the center of the stone.
Yes. I wish I was better at this, more experienced. I don't have these fancy pieces of equipment that I would like to have. I spent some money on trying to get projectors, and the posters that I had made, I had like went over them. You can see that some of that is on the back side. That's where it bled through the over the paper, and the other side it looks almost, well, it's so big it's hard to just really. Okay, this line right here is the one you're talking about. I believe that's the surface of the Ushnu, which would be the Concha at Cusco. But I can't, say that's for fact what it is. It could be any scene from the other side of Sacsayhuaman where they have the rounded features there as well. But I believe that is a picture of something going on. It could be the raft that Viracocha is known
I can
to
see a raft.
Right. I'm not the historian, that really should be looking into this stuff. I'm just a fellow with a little bit of a fancy, and I've had to learn Spanish to even, start to do the research. And I'm a slow learner. And I've been at this since I discovered the Living Stones of Sacsayhuaman video back in like 2013. And I've been trying to get other people, the ones that are supposed to do it, to do that. And then I gave up, and I decided that it might be time to just roll with some of these archaeologists and anthropologists around in the dirt a little bit and have some fun with it. And I haven't done as much research lately as I have mudslinging and trying to get people's attention. I wanted to piss a few people off, but I wanted to.
Have you thought about going to, have you ever been there?
Oh, I've always wanted to go to Peru from, back when I was a younger person. I knew of Machu Picchu, and the Sacsayhuaman thing is not totally new to me. I was aware of that from National Geographics and just being an interest in old things from a young age. So yes, I've always wanted to go, but I don't think it's something that I'll be able to do. But I'm happy to watch other people's videos. If they would tag me in their video, this is from Sacsayhuaman, I'll watch it. I watch hundreds, if not thousands, of just little travel vlogs, people that visit every place that's really cool. Angkor Wat, Egypt, Göbekli Tepe, everywhere that you can get, I'll watch it. I've watched just so much. And I've learned an awful lot that I've really never anticipated learning. And I think that there's a lot wrong with what we know, and there's a lot of gaps that are actually fairly easy to fill if the people would go do it. A lot of knowledge was lost, but there's a lot still to be found, and they've discounted so much and destroyed an awful lot, and for some reason they've hidden an awful lot. the Catholic Church hid the tunnel stuff at the Viracocha for over 350 years. If it hadn't been for an earthquake, they never would have come clean. And they would probably still restrict access to it. And now you still restricted. You have to have very special permissions to visit any of that stuff. They dug up the street there in Kudo, found more city below it, engravings there as well, more nubs, all in. Nobody ever seen it in modern times. Not Inca, not anybody had seen this stuff.
Mm.
He just covered it back up because it interfered with tourism. But it's still there. They preserved it fine. This rock is sitting at Sacsayhuaman. It's illegal to move it. So I'm sure that it's fine. It's just that it's going to disappear into those lichens, and nobody's going to really ever get curious enough to study it unless, we've already
you know, the one takeaway sometimes I think about that concept is that it's like these dinosaur footprints that I went and saw a couple of weeks ago. And I was with this 90-year-old geologist who originally uncovered them 50 years ago when he was like 30 years old. And he was showing us them or whatever. And he was saying that in 50 years, being exposed to the elements, that they've gone down in their impression, like sharpness and everything. He said at least by 50%. He's like, it's like in 100 years from now, this will just look like the regular ground. You won't even be able to tell it's a dinosaur print, because it's calcium, or what is it? It's it's in a limestone, like all the elements, the rain, the wind, this extreme heat, like whatever. So it is one of those things where I think to myself, when you think of it like that, I'm glad we haven't unearthed everything sometimes, because we're horrible stewards to what we do have anyway, one. And two, it is kind of nice that there will for sure be things for future generations to discover and explore too, even though I kind of want to know it all now. But
yeah, I want to know some more.
I want to know some more
too. They are ready to go. They show an interest, but they don't really seem to be interested in letting their discoveries out too quickly. Occasionally you'll hear something like they've done ground penetrating radar, LiDAR scans at TIWANAKU that show more sunken plazas, and no plan to dig or anything. But at least they did do that, and they let us know. They are diving Titicaca and finding structures, or at least walls or certain things down there that nobody really anticipated finding. And so they're moving forward, but it's a pretty slow pace.
Well, and there's just not a lot of money in it, honestly. It's universities are usually who funds this stuff. Sometimes maybe your occasional show might, like America Unearthed or like some sort of National Geographic. You might get some independent funding, but in a lot of ways, a lot of these things are just, they're at the mercy of donations and or university funding. And so
very fortunate the way things are done.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it though.
It takes a lot of money to do some of the things that they need to do. The museums end up costing a lot of money to put a few artifacts in it. And it's good that somewhere down the line, they're going to figure a lot more of this out. They'll do a lot more of the excavating. When they find stuff now, they really need to do the right. I know that other places, they find something and they document, but they don't seem to be doing that in Peru. I hate to, just know that that is what I'm finding.
Yeah.
They do let a lot out, but at the same time, there's this whole set of stuff that they don't, for some reason, want out, or they haven't bothered to. I think that in the case of this stone, they sort of knew what they had, because it's fairly obvious. You don't have to, you know, if I was right there with it, I could see this thing clear as a bell. And I think that there's no way they didn't understand that the artifact they were looking at was extremely important, and they've neglected it to the point that it's almost unrecognizable. They put no documentation into it. They are big on their Ministry of Culture down there. They found an artifact that they put in the news, which has some strange tool marks on it. The big ring donut looking thing with the cat on it. That thing is very weird in its tool marks.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to look at that.
They say a heated spear on clay, you know, but it's not clay. And you know, I don't know that, you know, how you hold on to something that hot. Of course, if it's a spear on a long stick, probably going to catch your stick on fire if it's that hot that it melts, you know, rock like it was clay. So I don't buy that. If anything, it may have been some sort of super technical arc welding or arc removal, used electricity to pull the material away from the effigy. And the tool marks that are on the rock that I've talked about are so fine. I don't understand how it is even possible that you could take a needle and do this kind of work, but that's how sharp and fine the tool was, needle. And
so you think like all those other little things, you don't think there's a mistake on it? You think that's all intentionally? It's all.
I think it's perfect. Places you might see something that looks like, oh, there's a dent there. Well, no, that's a place where they didn't use the tool very much. It's only got a few hundred tool marks, whereas around it, it's got thousands.
Interesting. It's almost like they had laser, you know.
Laser etching. There today we have some things that can do something similar to this, but it's very, very high tech stuff. Very high tech, and it's only going into the surface of the andesite, which is extremely hard. It's going in meters or millimeters or even smaller, you know, increments. It's just the surface of this rock, but there's so many tool marks that it's sort of dug in. And I would love to know the topographical features of this rock, because they can't be very deep, but they're pretty consistent. I'm sure that's one of the things that we need to look at, is how consistently deep did the tool bite. And the rock, the crystalline nature in it, does it allow itself to actually be treated like butter, because this thing would pull away the crystallized particles that are larger than what you would intend, and just actually make a mistake because you drug off too much material, because the material's nature, if you get what I mean. It's not marble. Or,
you know, it's funny. I was at OLLANTAYTAMBO, and my guide, who was not into any of this stuff, he was one of the native guys there. He you know, they have the little nubs at the bottom of the very, very big perfectly straight ones, like, and he's like, oh, all these ancient conspiracy people think that all this stuff is like made by aliens or whatever, but these little nubs they show that this is the handles that they use to move the stones. I was like, dude,
yeah, that's not, I'm not buying
no,
that. It's
not unless
very
you have like Superman
tool
strength.
for work. I know they've made it look like child's play and all, but these were extremely advanced tools. I'm not sure what tool it was. I have some suspicions. We should see one in the hands of Viracocha, probably. Right in his hands. He's famously known for being a staff god. That these tools are what were working or allowed them to do to rock what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And it's incredible. I can't just how in awe of the workmanship and the quality of the tools were. They were exceptional.
Awesome.
Exceptional. It's almost like a little tiny needle point vacuum that just sucks the material away. And where it goes, it could go to another pile and become some sort of geopolymer later on. I don't know what they did with all the dust and stuff, because there would be just a humongous pile of off material from making the walls. But I believe there's an older structure underneath that is of utmost importance. It's more important than the polygonal walls. We have lots of that around the world. We need to get to the base of what's going on at Sexy Woman, Cusco, TIWANAKU. They were all related. I believe
there's so many places that
the procedure of the Olmec. Yeah, there's a lot left to piece together. And it's hard to get all the pieces to show themselves whenever academia seems to be kind of, a little bit resistant about putting them all on the table. And they leave some important parts out. The stalactite evidence, important part of the puzzle that they should put in there.
Okay, and so those were stalactites that were found in Lake Titicaca?
At TIWANAKU. They have subterranean conduits. There's a video of it. Like say, Paulo Costa is a YouTuber. And it's like fairly old video now. It's like 8-12 years old or something, where they actually, as a team, a whole team of them, but this one boy, fella and another woman explored these conduits, and you can see some of the construction methods in there where the floors are made out of different blocks, and all of a sudden they'll pass an area where it's like, well, that's different. That's multiple blocks, not just one big block after one big block, but these pretty tight conduits. They're crawling through them, and then they encounter stalactites, soda straw stalactites that
take a long
little credit cards. They use their little ID card or something to hold up there to show how long these stalactites are. And there's, a lot of them. And they're real careful, but they broke some off, brought them out, tested them for how long it takes for that sort of materials to metastasize or whatever, become solid. And they estimated 12,000 years of growth.
Wow.
Antonio Portugal Alvazuri, Brian Foster has had him on his YouTube channel and has went over this evidence. Brian Foster's completely aware of this particular piece of evidence. He's been told by Alvazuri. He is an archaeologist, and Brian looks up to him. I do too. He has some out there theories and says that there are, well, you should watch his videos and find out what he's got to say about the subterranean network of that area.
Okay.
It's fantastic.
I will. All right, Sherman, this has been awesome. So where can people find you? So you're on, I know I found you on Twitter and you share a lot of images of this stuff. Is there anywhere else you're at? And like, what's your Twitter handle?
Is NASCAR Oz at Twitter _Oz. And yeah, I share a lot of the things that I find on YouTube where I'm Shermanator Osborn. And I used to have a lot of followers on Google Plus that of course went away, and that pushed me over to the Twitter thing where I used to be a NASCAR fan. I love NASCAR and I watch it all the time. And this kind of pulled me away from that. Is my new obsession was this ancient research, and so I spend a lot of time now on Twitter and hanging with the fellas, and I don't really get a chance to just be real super chatty or anything because I'm spending a lot of time finding things on YouTube. I'm still looking, and I like to roast the academia for some negligent stuff, and I'm getting traction, and I think that they're going to have to take notice eventually, but that the independent community will get up there and perhaps keep tabs on the progress and hopefully get enough attention that this thing will get cleaned up and into a museum where it probably should be a long time ago. And I think they'll find more of this and probably already know about it. And I think it's going to be a significant moment for Andean history once this thing is actually documented, and everybody gets to judge the artifact for it. I have tried to say it's as spectacular as I believe it is, as often and as loud as I can to as many people that'll listen. And I feel like I'm having success getting on your show. It got your attention, and I thank you for having me on. And I really look forward to you going to Peru, doing some of this yourself.
I know. I was thinking to myself, I'm like, I gotta go do this. So yeah.
I know. I was thinking.
But yeah, Sherman, send me anything you think I need to look
piece.
at anytime. I'm open ears. I'm very open-minded to everything, and I'm into this kind of stuff too. So I think it's like, yeah, I think we all are going to benefit by, finding more out together. So yeah.
Yes, there's a lot left to do. The work is just really beginning. There's a lot of been done, but there's still so much that's got to come together before we get an answer to nub mystery and just knowing what happened a long time ago.
Yep, it's so true. All right, well, thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.